Alrighty. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Dayton Hamvention. Welcome to the talk about Andy's Ham Radio Linux. My name is Andy. I'm KB1OIQ, and I spent Tuesday and Wednesday driving here from Eastern Massachusetts, and I'm very happy to be here today. So thank you all for coming. So just a little bit about me. I've been in the hobby since 2007, and I gradually earned up to my extra class privileges in 2009. I was a ham radio club president for about 10 years in Westford, Massachusetts, which is about 25 miles or so outside of Boston. And I did some stuff with the section for a couple of years to help out. I founded my first Linux users group in 1997 when I lived in Worcester, Massachusetts, and that is still going strong today, although I haven't participated since about 2006 because I moved out of that area. I founded and was acting president for many years of the Chelmsford Linux Meetup Group. That's the town to which I moved after I lived in Worcester. And that went until 2020, and unfortunately COVID killed off that group. People still get together and do fun things. I did some instruction for the town's adult education program at night between 2004 and 2011. And when you think you know something and then you go to try to teach it, you find out whether or not you really know it. And that was a great experience both for the students and for me. And I've been a Linux user since 1997. None of my computers at home run Windows or Mac or anything else, and I've been very, very happy that way. Recently, I retired in August of last year. I was a computer engineer. I did digital logic verification, so I literally lived in simulated reality, and I could change it with one line of code. Wow, it's too bad life isn't like that. But I very much enjoyed the career. I spent my last 14 years at NVIDIA and had a great, great time. So now I have more time to do ham radio projects, Andy's Ham Radio Linux, and so forth. So my most recent interests, I've actually developed an interest in bringing antique radios back to life, mostly AM radios, FM, a couple of ham radios I've done so far. I wouldn't call it restoration because I'm not trying to make it look original, but I do repair it and make it work again. I also joined a makerspace up in Nashua, New Hampshire called Make It Labs, and they have all sorts of great equipment available for people who want to build things. And it's the largest makerspace in New Hampshire, and it's a really great group of people. I'm glad I joined. So my first project there was I fabricated a wooden box for a 1940s FM radio chassis, and I was very happy with how it came out, and I got to use a laser cutter to cut the wood to the desired proportions, so that was great. And Solder Smoke had a direct conversion 40-meter receiver that I built recently with some friends and had a lot of fun there. Fox hunting, POTA. Lately I've been watching DX World and chasing some rare DX to get my totals up. And of course, I spend time with Andy's Ham Radio Linux. Recently having put in some updates for the ARRL Teachers Institute, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. So what are my goals here? Well, my goals are to promote Linux, of course. I personally think it's the way to go. But I also want to give something back to both the ham radio communities and the Linux community, and this is one way that I do that. So I wanted to create a software collection that contained as much ham radio software as I could possibly find, but nothing proprietary. Everything has to be free and open source or similarly licensed for two reasons. One, philosophically, I'm not into proprietary software. And two, I don't think I can legally redistribute somebody else's proprietary software. So I just don't go there. Now, if you use this and you choose to install a program that's proprietary, that's on you. We could have an adult beverage and I'll try to talk you out of it, but it's your computer, so you need to do what you think is right. And I don't do anything to stop anybody from doing that. The goal, and it's a lofty one, everything just works. Now, that's almost never true on any computer on the planet, but that's the goal, because I want people to use the software to have fun with the hobby, not have yet another headache of a computer to deal with. So that's the goal. And that's how the idea of Andy's Ham Radio Linux started. Now, you can tell I'm not a marketing person, I'm an engineer, and that's why it's named the way it is. So what is Andy's Ham Radio Linux? As I mentioned, it's a ham radio software collection that I found on the internet. Maybe 2 or 3 of the programs I wrote a long time ago. Everything else was written by other people around the world. And all I've done is collected it all in one place. I packaged it up and made it easy for you folks to install and use. And now multiple Linux flavors are supported. So if people heard my talk last year I was talking about making that possible to run on more flavors of Linux and also on Raspberry Pi. And 3 months after I gave the talk last year, I released the first version where that happened. And so far, so good. So Raspberry Pi OS is supported now, and the menus are customizable for ease of use, but I customize them for you, and I put things in categories that I think make sense. But if you know where to poke for the text files and whatnot, you can change that if you wish. So in the past, how did I do this? Well, version 25 and earlier were heavily customized, or we might say remastered versions of Xubuntu Linux. So I took it, I remastered it, I created an ISO file, and I put that on SourceForge for people to download. And by some definition, it worked very well for about 13 years, but it wasn't perfect. It was not easily customizable by the user. You got Xubuntu, you got what I put on there, and if you knew how to do, install and remove packages with the APT system, you could customize it, but many people haven't yet learned that skill, so they felt it was limiting. And no other flavors of Linux were supported. And many people would say, well, why can't I run it on Debian Live or this version or that version? And it just wasn't possible back then. And every release was handcrafted, New England old world handcraftsmanship, and it took a lot of time, especially when I did both the 32-bit version and the 64-bit version many years ago. I was doing the same thing twice. And so that was kind of tedious and kind of time-consuming. And I didn't write anything down. It was all up here. So when I would do the next release, I'm like, oh yeah, I have to put a hack in for this program to make it work. What the heck did I do? And I would have to relearn things, and it was just kind of slow and inefficient. But worse, there was no documentation. So if I ever get sick of the project or somehow fall off the edge of the planet, nobody knows how I did it. And that doesn't serve the community well. So I wanted to fix that. And also, the ISO file was huge. It was 5 gigabytes pushing 6. And some of you who have high-speed internet would say, well, that's not a problem. But for other people, that's a big problem. And on a few occasions, I've mailed thumb drives to people so that they can use this because they had issues downloading it. And there was no good upgrade path between versions of Andy's Ham Radio Linux. You had to save off your home directory, reinstall a whole new ISO file, put your home directory back. And yeah, many people did that, but granted, that wasn't as convenient as I thought I could make it. So I think I've addressed all of those issues with the new way that I'm doing it. So starting with version 26, which was around, July, August, September, I forget exactly when that came out. The first thing the user would do is install a supported flavor of Linux, and I'll talk about which flavors are supported. Now, there may be flavors out there, and there probably are, that are not supported, but this works anyway. If you discover that, send me an email, and I will add that flavor of Linux to the supported list so that it opens up the options for people. So after your Linux is installed, you get the programs you want, you configure it the way you want, you grab the tar.g zip file off of SourceForge, and you install that following the instructions that I provided. And then, by magic, everything just works. Right? Or at least that's what we hope, right? One person said theirs worked. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. I hope everyone else can say that. And then lastly, have fun with the new software. This is a hobby. We want to have fun. And so go through the menus, see what's there, and you might find out a different aspect of the hobby that you had never tried, and you might try it because of this. So what are the, in more detail, what did I change for version 26? Now there's an installation script. It's just a bash script, and it serves not only as documentation, but you execute that script when you do the installation of Andy's Ham Radio Linux. I released that as open source. So if I fall off the edge of the flat planet, then somebody can pick that up and go with it. Or if somebody believes that they can do something 10 times better than what I did, please do it. Right? It's all right there. It's open source. It's meant to be built upon. And the installation script is customizable. So if you look through it and say, I just want these programs, I don't want those, there's a very easy way to customize it. And I discussed that in the Getting Started document. The file that you download is much smaller. The tar.g zip file is now 600 megabytes. And in that is the installation script and a few source tar files so that you don't have to chase them around the internet or worry that the link changed since I released it and now you can't do it. I've taken care of all that for you. And multiple Linux flavors are supported. And let me go down that short list. Debian Live and Linux Mint Debian Edition are now supported. Various Ubuntu flavors, regular Ubuntu, Kubuntu, Xubuntu, those are all supported. The one I use is Xubuntu, just because that's what I like. Linux Mint Cinnamon is now supported. And Raspberry Pi OS is supported. I recommend Pi 4 and Pi 5 with 8 gigabytes of memory. You'll have a much happier experience if you load it up with memory. And Pi 5, I think, is better than Pi 4. Pi 4 is a little pokey to me, but Pi 5 seems to work pretty well. Someday, if you want to update Andy's Ham Radio Linux, all you have to do is download the more recent tar.g zip file and install it. And it goes right over the top of the previous one. And again, in theory, everything just works. If you discover that that's not the case, file a bug on SourceForge or send me an email and I will address it. So target computer. Well, nowadays people have computers where other operating systems say, oh, this computer is not good enough to run their stuff. Linux will run it just fine, right? You hardly ever have an issue like that with Linux. Now, maybe you don't have enough memory, maybe your CPU is a little bit slow for what you want to do, but it will load up and it will do the best it can to run, and largely you'll have a good experience. Why? Because most ham radio programs are not CPU intensive. So an older computer will work just fine. If you've got a 5, 6, 7-year-old laptop that you thought you were going to throw away, no, load Linux on it, give it a try. You'll be pleasantly surprised. And I also mentioned Raspberry Pi 4 and 5. 2 gigabytes of memory is an absolute minimum. I don't recommend that you really do that. I recommend that you go 8 gigabytes, and that's more important with Raspberry Pi because I believe you have to purchase it with the desired amount of memory. You can't just install memory after you buy it. Storage. After you've done the Andy's Ham Radio Linux installation, AHRL takes about 10 additional gigabytes. That's hardly a problem for anybody these days. And you have to have a functioning network. Why? Because about half of the programs are installed from an Ubuntu repository. And of course, you have to have the network to be able to get there. And the other half of the programs are compiled from source, again, which I supply. So now that I've convinced you all to run Andy's Ham Radio Linux, so let me ask, how many people are running Andy's Ham Radio Linux? Show of hands. Quite a few, okay. How many people are going to go run off and do it at the hotel tonight after the day is over? A couple of you, thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, so if you want to download this, go to sourceforge.net or abbreviated, SierraFoxtrot.net. Search for Andy's Ham Radio Linux or my call sign, KB1OIQ. The current version is version 26 Delta. I just came out with that at the end of April, and so far so good. It's around 750 downloads in about 3 weeks. I'm very pleased about that. Now, when you go to that website, you'll see the big green download button, which I configure to give you the most recent version, and right now that's version 26D. Please, please, please download and read and follow the Getting Started document. It's just that, getting started. How do you install it? What do you do? It's really pretty simple, but people who file bugs and have problems, 99% of the time, it's because they didn't read it. So I didn't create it to waste your time. It's only a couple of pages, and you will save yourself infinite grief if you would please read it. So when you go to the SourceForge website, it looks kind of like this, and you'll see the big green download button there, and usually that's all you have to hit to download that tar file. And if you click into the files area, you'll see the different versions of Andy's Ham Radio Linux there, and the latest one will always be on top, version 26 Delta. You could download an older one if you wanted, but I'm not sure why you'd want to, but they are there. And then if you click within that directory, you'll see a whole bunch of files here. You'll see the Andy v26 delta.tar.gzip and the MD5 checksum file. Download that. Run the MD5 checksum before you install it to make sure that your download was not corrupt. That causes very strange problems when you have a corrupt download and try to install it. And then you'll notice some other files in there. There's a list of the software. There's a change log. What did I change from the previous version? The changes file has that. You'll see the Getting Started document. And it's there in 3 other file names because, believe it or not, people still can't find it. So README, README.txt, and README first are all copies of the Getting Started file. If folks can't find it after that, I don't know what to do, right? It's like I tell people, if you can't cut a tape measure to length when you're making a Yagi, I can't help you. So please follow the instructions in there, and afterwards it tells you to reboot the computer, but please do so anyway. Yes, I know on Linux you don't normally have to do that, but because accounts are added to groups and so forth, you really do need to do that to get that stuff updated. And then peruse the menus and see what's there. So there are some differences in the way the menus are presented. Now, some Linux flavors support multi-level menus where you'll go down the menu and it says Andy Ham Radio Linux, and you slide over and there's a bunch of categories, and you slide over and you see the software in said category. And that's what I prefer, and there are some flavors of Linux that support that style of menu, but not all. So for example, Linux Mint and Xubuntu don't support that style of menu. So you'll see a menu that says Andy Ham Radio Linux, and then a big long list of about 90 programs in alphabetical order, sometimes with a quick hint as to what the software is. To each their own. I mean, they all work. One of the things I do, I used to be a verification engineer for digital logic circuits, so every single menu, I go through it and make sure the program comes up before I send it out to you, because that's just a dumb error. I don't want to hand you software like that. So yeah, it's a little tedious because there's about 90 of them, and I do it for multiple flavors of Linux because once in a while I find a weird glitch in a Debian version that doesn't exist in an Ubuntu version, as one example. So I check it all as thoroughly as I can, but I'm only human. If I make a mistake, call me on it, I'll fix it. So real quickly here, this is what the menu structure looks like on a Raspberry Pi 5. You can see the Andy Ham Radio Linux, the second level menu, and then so forth. And the only difference in these is they're just graphically, they appear different. They all have the same information in the different menu structure. So here you can see on Debian Live where it goes through, that's the multi-layer menu structure that I was talking about. Whereas here on Linux Mint Cinnamon, it just has one layer, and I've scrolled down a little bit to get to software that begins with the letter D. And Xubuntu is similar. You know, the graphics are different. It's all there. So what I wanted to do is go through at a very high level. I'm not going to have time to go through 90 pieces of software, and you'd all be walking out on me after the fifth one if I did that. But I wanted to give you a feel for what's in here. And these are things that I found. If you find other free and open source software that's related to ham radio, send me an email, and if it looks good, I'll put it in. I'm happy to. Many programs that are in here I didn't know about, and the user community educated me on that. And so that's where a lot of this comes from. So in the antenna-related software, you can see there's quite a few programs in there that do antenna modeling and talk to your Rig Expert Analyzer and things of that nature. This is a program that I wrote many, many years ago called FL MoxGen. It copies the look and feel of a similar Windows program, but it was totally written up in a clean room environment for people who want to compute the dimensions to build themselves a Moxon rectangle antenna. This software will also create a file for antenna modeling, and you can print it and have a PDF printout so that you can take it to your workshop and build it. And I built one of these, and it works very nicely. You can also model that antenna in XNEC 2C. It creates the file. You just load the file in. You don't have to know anything about the tool to see that, okay, it's the vertical orientation of the antenna, there's the radiation pattern, and the window that's partly occluded on the left shows the front to back ratio, max gain, predicted SWR, and that sort of thing. And we all know with antennas, your mileage may vary, but this is at least a good starting point. This is a program that I found out recently, and I like this program. This is the community edition of Morserunner. It's been available in the Windows world for a long time, and typically I did not install anything from the Windows world because those programs typically are not open source. But this one is, now that it's the community version. So I took a dive and said, well, my experience with Wine hasn't been the best, but let's give it a try. This program works very, very well with Wine, at least in my experience, so give it a try. For people who like CW and want to simulate field day and other contests like that, this software is very, very good for that. You enter the call sign that you heard in the exchange, and you hit enter, and it creates a window that looks very much like your logging program, and a few seconds later it will tell you if you logged it correctly or not. And I think it's a lot of fun to run this program, so I'm happy to put it in there. ARRL Teachers Institute. I hope people have heard of that program. It's a great program. I spoke to Steve Goodgame last night. He leads this up. And my understanding is that first of all, about 6 months ago, a year ago, they asked me if I would put in a bunch of software to aid their efforts to do the STEM education of teachers with Andy's Ham Radio Linux. So I gave them their own menu and put in the programs that they asked me to put in. Many of these programs are already there. Some were different, and they are also listed in other appropriate menus as well. And I talked to Steve last night. The first time that they're going to use this software to teach the teachers is going to be in early June. So I very much look forward to hearing how that experience goes with Steve and company. So I appreciate that headquarters knows about this and sees the value in it and wants to give it a try. So you can see a whole bunch of different programs there that I put in just for the Teachers Institute. Documentation. How many people ever read the documentation? Wow, that's a lot. I'm actually surprised. So, people who are familiar with Linux systems know about man pages for some of the programs. You can go off to various websites and find it. And I put a few documents on here just to help people out. But if you have trouble with a piece of software and it's not related to Andy's Ham Radio Linux, if you're not sure, ask me. I'll direct you in the right place. Go to the website for the software. I could call it RTFM, read the friendly manual, and maybe I will in another release, but that would get people's attention for sure. But I tried to put some things here for you, and some of them are links to the website for the software, but I wasn't consistent. I didn't do it for all of the software, and maybe I should, or maybe I should just get rid of this. I don't know. But it's there for now. And if you click it, it will bring you into the directory where I keep these files. And this set of files in this directory is how-tos that I've written based on my experience. So how did I get M17 going, which is the digital codec, codec 2 that folks are using on 2 meters and 440 and so forth? How did I get some of these other programs working? I have a friend with manual dexterity issues due to Parkinson's, and I found ways that people with some dexterity issues can still use this by making the window borders bigger, slowing the mouse down, and so forth. And so I wrote up the manual dexterity solutions in that first file, hoping that somebody would find it useful. And then, of course, you can see at the bottom one of the manual pages for one of the older programs. Digital modes. We have lots and lots and lots of different digital modes and lots of software to help us, utilize that part of the hobby. So you can see a long list there. The FL programs, I affectionately call it the FL family of programs from Dave Fries, W1HKJ and company. A lot of programs that those folks have put together for us to use. People have probably heard of FL Digi, at least, if not the others. And those run on all 3 major operating systems, and it's my pleasure to put them here. So WSJTX, anybody who's done FT4 or FT8 is probably familiar with this software. You've got the waterfall at the bottom. You've got the decode of the digital information on top. This program not only saves a log of your contacts, it can communicate with Grid Tracker, and your logs can be uploaded one at a time if you've configured Grid Tracker accordingly. And it also will send your log to Xlog. How do I know this? I'm the Xlog maintainer. I made it work because Xlog is the logger that I most often use. So I'd be surprised if you're not familiar with this software, but this is what people usually use when they're doing FT8. The other one is MSHV, which is also included. Grid Tracker 2. I think this is an absolutely awesome piece of software, and my hat is off to the people who wrote it and continue to maintain it. This software will help you keep track of grids, and it's not just for 6-meter Fred fish. Whenever you communicate with somebody via FT8, it will put a mark on the map. And when you configure this to talk to Logbook of the World, for example, it will download the log and say, oh, that contact was confirmed, and it changes the color. And so you can see which parts of the world you and your antenna system and your time of day and whatnot are able to communicate with. You can't see it very well, but there is a green line on that map that shows a QSO in progress. There's a couple of them, and that's what your radio can hear. Okay, is those QSOs in progress. And when you make a contact, that's a red line that shows who you're talking to. One cool thing about this is you get an idea of your antenna's behavior. and the power that you're running and so forth, time of day and whatnot. So I find it very helpful. I also find it really helpful because the bottom screen allows you to filter all the contacts that are coming in. Maybe you're only interested in people calling CQ, or maybe you're only interested in grids that you have not yet confirmed or DXCC entities that you have not yet confirmed. This will let you set all of that up. Or maybe you only want to focus on that DX station. Where are they? You can set that up in here. It's highly customizable and really, really good. The top right actually shows you, and I think it talks to PSK Reporter to get this information, what band is everybody hanging out on? And so if you get on there and you find a dead band, you look at that and say, oh, wait a minute, everybody's on 40. Okay, you might want to go there. So this is a fantastic piece of software, and as far as I know, it also runs on all 3 major operating systems. Electronic design. This is a part of the hobby that I don't know if as many people do it as they used to, but I wanted to put some software here for people who do. So how many people are familiar with Arduinos and maybe have programmed them in the past? Good number. So the Arduino software is in here for you to use. I've used it for various projects and found it very helpful. The micro BitX and other BitX related projects from India, last I knew they were using Arduino inside there, and I had fun hacking the daylights out of the software to make it work in a way that I found more pleasurable. And because it's open source, you can do that. And there's many people out there that do that for micro BitX, for example. I think they're up to ZBitX now. There's a newer one out. For people who want to wind their own coils, there's always the, well, how many turns do I have to do? And oh, darn it, I didn't put enough wire on, start all over again, and all of that. I suspect many of us have been through that pain. This software will make a prediction if you give it the wire gauge and the diameter of the thing you're winding it on and so forth. You get a ballpark idea. Add 8 turns anyway. And then measure it, and then trim accordingly. It's a heck of a lot easier to subtract turns than it is to solder the wire together and try to make that work, although you can. So I found this to be a nice piece of software, and it also understands the different ways you might wind it. Is it just one layer of wire, or is it 2, or are you spacing them out? What are you doing? And all of that matters for the inductance that results. I haven't drawn schematics in a lot of years, but many people still do. The KiCad software is in there for you to draw schematics. There's many people out there that design kits and do circuit boards and all that kind of thing, and this software can be very, very helpful for that. HF propagation, we're supposedly on the downside a little bit of the peak of the sunspot cycle, but propagation is still very, very good for most of us. And there's quite a bit of software here that you can use to make a prediction. Okay, I want to talk to, pick a country. What's a good time of day? What's a good band to do it on? Put in your power and something about your antenna, and you can make a prediction as to what that might look like. Now, the sun might have different ideas. There might be solar storms and whatnot, but you get a good idea of, do you even have any chance at all of making this contact? Sometimes when it says 10%, you get lucky. You make the contact anyway, but it's not highly likely in most cases. So I found out about this program recently. This is called HamClock, and this is a really excellent program. Some people make standalone systems with a Raspberry Pi Pico and this software with a monitor. This stuff looks, forgive me, way cool on a 45-inch HDI monitor. Don't ask me how I know this. Okay, it really does. So this software has more bells and whistles than I think I can articulate. Each of the panes across the top can be customized. So the one that has my call sign can be customized. The one that says solar wind next to it, you can customize all of these. The map and what it displays can be customized. And in demo mode, it cycles through all of the different possibilities, so you can see just what this software can do. My only very, very minor complaint is when you click the window to configure it, it's like a 6-point font. It's awfully small, but it's there, and it's kind of necessary because they're jamming a lot of stuff into a small piece of screen real estate. But it's excellent software. I encourage you to give it a try. One of the things I did with that is I put in the grid for a recent DXpedition, and I wanted to see what band are they on. Now, sure, I'm looking at DX Summit, but sometimes people post false info there and whatnot, and I could see, okay, they're mostly on 20, and it's getting to this part of the world, which is not me. So, okay, either they're not talking to my part of the world, or maybe propagation isn't amenable for that. But this helps an awful lot with that sort of thing. VOA cap. VOA cap has been around for a long time. It used to be a standalone program, and several years ago it turned into a website that anybody can use. So if my Eastern Massachusetts location is on the red flag there, and I said, well, what happens if I want to talk to South Africa? So I put in, well, I'm not running 1500 watts, but you could fill in your information about your antenna and your mode, and then you get this really nice chart on the left-hand side where the closer you are to red, the more probable it is that your communication will succeed at that particular time of day. So you can see on here, if you were on the 15-meter band at 1700 UTC, you would have a really good chance of making the contact from Eastern Massachusetts. And whereas at 0 hours UTC on the 10-meter band, you basically don't have a prayer. Again, not to say it couldn't happen, but it's highly unlikely. So this is a really good program. You don't have to know much about propagation, just what's your mode, what's your power, and at 50,000 feet, what's your antenna like, and that's it. Logging. Almost every ham that I know logs in some sort of logging program, and I put several in here for you, and one of them is a relatively new addition, which I'll be sure to touch on. So this is CQR log for Linux. People have told me this is a contest level logger, but I'm not really a contester, so I can't say for sure. But this feeds its information to a database, and it will talk to various online resources to help fill in the blanks when you type in a call sign. And you can log all sorts of different information in this logger, and many people like it. Not 1mm. How many people here have heard of N1mm, the logger? It's apparently pretty popular. Somebody thought it was so good that they decided to write it for Linux. Okay, this is a free and open source version called Not 1mm. Not to be confused with N1mm, but that version is not free and open source software. This one is. And I'm told that the person who wrote it admits on the website, I blatantly stole the look and feel of N1mm, and plagiarism is indeed the highest form of flattery, right? So now we have this on Linux. Other than dabble with it quickly, I have not used it, but it looks like it has a lot of promise for people who want to log that way. And if you know N1mm already, in theory, you should feel right at home here. So this is a fairly recent addition that a user told me about. Xlog. Now, people have picked on me. They think this slide's a little old just because at the bottom right it says August 2010. Well, it is. This is mature software. Why? Because nobody's reported a bug to me about it in the last 5 years. Although I have updated its ability to output an ADIF file that matches the most recent ADIF specification. That's about all I've had to change here. I use this logger all the time. It does what I need it to do. It's meant for casual operating, but if you know a few keystrokes, I have used it for field day. I am Kilo 2 Hotel, 13 Colonies, Massachusetts. I'm one of about a dozen operators, and in a week I've put 2,200 calls in the log with this logger. It can be done. And it's not difficult to do. When you have to move the mouse and click and this and that really slows down your QSO rate. But it saves everything as a flat text file, which is great when you mess up because Emacs or VI or whatever you use can go in and fix it if you're careful. It's yet another logger. And many years ago, I took over maintenance of this program from the gentleman who had written it because he just didn't want to do that anymore. So it's out there and many people use it. NBMS, the Narrowband Emergency Messaging System. I'm not an MCOM kind of guy, but I put some software in here for folks who do that sort of work, and it is an alternative to WinLink. And the thing that where this wins is twofold. One, it's free and open source software. Anybody can use it. WinLink is proprietary. And secondly, it does not rely on any existing infrastructure to work. So if something hits the fan and my radio works and your radio works, we can do this. It doesn't involve any servers at all that have to be there. and you'll see that the FL family of programs is well represented here. FL Digi, FL AMP, which makes sure that the message was transmitted without error. It does a ping pong back and forth between the sending and receiving station to make sure that the message got through clearly. FL Message has the different ICS forms that MCOM folks use. And then SILFeed is an email tool that integrates nicely with this for sending very short text-based emails. This does run on all three major operating systems because the pieces of software that are used run on all three. Rig control. I put a few rig control programs in here for your use. And well, let me back up a second here. Chirp. A lot of people really like Chirp for programming their HTs, for programming their mobile rigs, and so forth. I've used it with great success. Once you get over the fact that it comes up with a blank screen, like, okay, now what do I do? Once you get past that, you're all set. It looks very much like a spreadsheet. You fill in the blanks, it programs your radio, and there you go. Nice piece of software. WF View is a program that's been out there for a couple of years. As far as I know, it only supports ICOM radios at this time, but you get a selection of features of the radio that you can run from this graphical interface. I don't know if you can use this in a remote setup or not. I've never tried that. And naturally, with any graphical solution like this, you're not going to get at every single feature of the radio. It just wouldn't be likely to do. But you get at a lot of features this way. And this gentleman continues to update the software and come out with new versions and so forth. Yes.
It has a server implementation built into it, so you can run one locally, and then you can connect another one to it.
Okay, so it would work in a remote situation?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm informed that it does work in a remote situation, and I know more people are doing that kind of thing for any number of reasons.
Better than the ones paid for ICOM.
Is it? Okay, so some people believe that this is better at doing that than the software that you pay for from ICOM. I can't say for sure. I haven't run it, but this is at least one gentleman's experience.
We'll also work with non-graphical ICOM radios, Series 7100s, and things like that. But you won't have the water quality to that level.
Right. So I'm told it works with radios such as the ICOM 7100 that don't necessarily, well, that one does not have a waterfall. I've tried it briefly with my 7300, and then when I bought the 7610, I tried it with that. Seemed to work just fine. Okay, satellites. I dabbled with satellites many years ago. I built myself the Kent Britton cheap Yagi for satellites on an old broomstick. I built myself an Azel rotator, and one very cold January day, I set this up in my driveway with lots of trees around, and I made my first satellite QSO. Now, I lived in Chelmsford, Massachusetts at the time, about 15 minutes south of the New Hampshire border, and wouldn't you know it, my first contact was a gentleman in Nashua, 15 minutes away. But he had a beautiful QSL card, right? So it works, and I was happy, that something I built actually worked pretty well. So for people who are, hang out with AMSAT and do, those sorts of satellites, the Fox-Telem program is in here. It lets you decode telemetry information from the satellite, and I believe this software also sends it to AMSAT so that they can keep track of the health of their satellites. I'm getting a nod here. GPredict is software that I use. This software has been around, probably 10 years or so, maybe a little bit longer. It is mature software. It's pretty solid. Not only can you configure the satellites that you are interested in, and it will show you the footprint on the Earth, it will download the TLE file, which allows the software to predict with high accuracy where the satellite will be. And when you start doing that, you find that your life revolves around the satellite, not the other way around. Right, but that's okay. And so this software also will talk to various ASL rotators. It will talk to various radios to deal with Doppler shift and things of that nature. And I made sure that this would talk to the homebrew ASL rotator that I built and work quite nicely. Software-defined radio. More and more these days we're seeing software-defined radios out there for people. There's a lot of software out there for software-defined radio. There's no way I could put all of it in here. Some of it is specific to a piece of hardware, some is more general purpose. But I picked a few programs that I'm pretty sure at least work with the RTL SDR dongle, which is very inexpensive. It's a good way to get your feet wet and see what's possible. But usually after that, people buy more sophisticated hardware that has more capability. So one program that I put in here that I think people will like is the GNU Radio Companion. And with this program, you can literally draw a block diagram of your signal processing algorithm. And you can, so like, for example, if one of the blocks was a filter, and you right-click on it, you can set the filter bandwidth, you can set how steep the skirts are, and so forth. And by setting all the blocks the right way and interconnecting them, when you push the go button, it will create Python code for you, and it will run that signal processing algorithm. One of the boxes would represent your SDR hardware, and another box represents your speaker, for example. And so many different SDR devices are supported, and there's an awful lot of tutorials online. I would encourage you to go to those tutorials to try this out. This is very sophisticated and complex software. It can do a lot. So this is an application that I borrowed from the internet where I have the RTL SDR source on the left. I've got a low-pass filter and some other things, and the audio sync at the end is where this comes out your speaker. And there's some GUI information on top. I basically set this up to pick up 4 local FM broadcast stations, and with a click box to pick which of the 4 stations I wanted. I don't think I put that slide in here, but it was that easy to create an application that does signal processing. Another program that's out there for doing this sort of thing is called GQRX, and folks might recognize that frequency as a NOAA weather radio, and I'm lucky to have a few stations nearby that do that, but I centered on the strongest one. When you configure it on the right-hand side to tell it what kind of signal to decode, you'll hear it out your speaker, and it works quite nicely. I didn't know what to call this menu, but people asked me to put in a variety of programs for tracking objects or people, and not in a surreptitious way. But so, for example, APRS, if you have a GPS hooked to your radio and you wish to transmit your coordinates, you can do that, and people can track the location of your car, let's say, or maybe you go hiking and you transmit that information. And there's a couple of other programs here. Zaster is one for APRS. I believe YAAC is another one that does that. But there's other things in here that people will often want to track. And one of them is aircraft. And so this program called Virtual Radar Server is included. Now, I live within reasonable proximity of both Logan Airport and Manchester, New Hampshire's airport. So there's lots of air traffic. This stuff is on 1.09 gigahertz. It's the ADS-B protocol is what they use. Stick any old antenna out there. If you're close enough to an airport, you'll hear it. And after 5 to 10 minutes or so of this software, it will draw pictures for you of the aircraft, and you can click on those, find out the aircraft's call sign, where they're going, what kind of aircraft, and so forth. So this is along the lines of tracking objects. Now, what is the status of AHRL? So I first released this in May 2011. I released version 8 because I didn't think the first 7 versions were worthy of leaving my house, so I didn't release them. And 35 versions later, and no, I did not number them consecutively, so we're in 2025. I've highlighted that more flavors of Linux are supported. I think that's a good thing. Raspberry Pi 4 and 5 are supported. The users are telling me that's a good thing. So I want to thank all of you and the rest of the community, because I could do this work and I'd be happy with it, but it makes me happier that many of you are using it and trying it and having a good time, not only with the software, but with the hobby in general. The community has been very good about actively reporting bugs, which I do jump on and fix them. The community has been very good about suggesting new programs that I should include in this software suite. And if the download counts are any indication, their interest seems to be very, very high in this software collection. Now, I theorize that maybe a couple of people have bad internet connections and they're persistent, but that doesn't answer how many downloads there have been. There have been a very large number of them, 750 in the last 3 weeks of the new version. So I remain very enthusiastic. I plan to keep doing this work for quite some time. I don't have an end date in mind, But I'm very happy to do this, one, because I like to use my computer this way, and why not do it so I can share it with all of you? So this slide was created about a week ago when I did a presentation for a local ham radio club. But at that time, so May 7th, there were just about 650 downloads of this software in not quite 3 weeks. So that number has gone up a little bit and probably will hit 1,000 downloads after it's been out there for about a month. So by version, now, careful here, when I say version 26, I'm including version 26 alpha, beta, Charlie, and delta, because there are minor differences between the two. So you can see where the first few years, nobody knew about Andy's Ham Radio Linux, so the downloads were small, and then all of a sudden things jumped. One year somebody gave a talk about this at Pacificon, and they spoke to me about it ahead of time. All of a sudden the downloads jumped. One gentleman that I know went down to Brazil to talk to college students about Linux. He must have mentioned the ham radio work because all of a sudden I had 500 downloads from Brazil, right? So word gets out. I don't know how it gets out, but this is one way for sure. So you can see where I've been very pleased to see that the number of downloads. It doesn't look particularly steady because I don't keep each version out there for the exact same amount of time, but the gist is it's getting a lot of attention. I was curious about this, downloads by geography. The SourceForge website creates this, and they go by IP addresses, so I don't know quite how accurate that is, but the first 3 or 4 countries are United States, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, Germany, and Spain. But if you scroll down, I don't have it on here, there's onesie-twosies from a large number of countries across the world, and so somehow people are finding out about this. In 2022, I was very pleased to get an email from the SourceForge folks that said, congratulations on 100,000 downloads. Thank you. I didn't download those, you folks did, so thank you very much. So SourceForge is the place to go. Search for my call sign or search for Andy's Ham Radio Linux. Hit the green download button. Be sure to actually read the Getting Started file. And please, if there are any problems, contact me. Send it to my personal email, put it on SourceForge, wherever. I have business cards up front here. If anybody would like my email, it's my call sign, Kilo Bravo 1 Oscar India Quebec at ARRL.net. And I will get back to you. It may take 24 hours, but I will get back to you. And whatever the issue is, I'll do my best to address it. There are several online videos of this presentation that are available. The folks in the back of the room are recording this on the Dayton Hamvention YouTube site, and I understand that this particular talk has had an awful lot of people watch that video, on the order of 6,000 or more. So thank you for your interest. I'm wondering if it's because I talk too fast and people slow the video down to hear what I've said. I don't know, or maybe they were at one of the other really great talks in this time slot. But either way, there seems to be a lot of interest, and I'm happy about that. The Rat Pack folks, if you search for them online, I think they have a fantastic library of talks, and they've been doing a lot to keep it up to date. And I was privileged to give them a talk via video conference earlier this year. And so you can search for Rat Pack KB10IQ as well. The difference there is you'll actually see my face, whereas on the Dayton Hamvention one, you won't. You get to decide. Okay, and look on YouTube for other videos. There are people out there that have done reviews of this software. I have not yet found a review of version 26. The reviews are for older versions, and they were spot on, but those issues have been since fixed. So this really is the last slide, and I think I'm right at the end of my time here, 2 minutes. So again, there's my email. Thank you very much for coming to the talk. I'm sorry it was warm in here, but I appreciate your patience. And with that, I will say have a lot of fun, and 7-3. Thanks for coming. Thank you.